So my name's Scott MacDougall. I'm a senior mobile developer for a company out in Oakville. I handle all the mobile related things, which is the development of the app in Xamarin Native. So individual Android, individual iOS, and I also handle the deployments to App Store and Google Play for our application. So the app that I work on, it's a white labeled application. So it's one code base, and it's white labeled with all of our clients' logos on, say, like login screen, their branded colors, and their app icon, stuff like that. So there's a few different ways you can handle that if you want to, if you just have, and their API, of course. A couple different ways you can handle that. I choose to do it based off of one code base, one branch, and manipulate the APK files and the IPA files when they're generated. Other ways you can do it, at my last company, I did something similar, but I think I had individual build definitions for each client. The problem with that is these are my builds here, but if we look at Android, for example, the last one that I did wasn't too bad, but it took 6 minutes and change to take from source, compile the application into an APK file. I did that at my last company, and it was the same thing, white labeled applications and stuff like that, but even when you have like a handful of clients, 6 minutes turns quickly into half hour, turns into a couple hours if you're just doing it all off of the source code. So when I joined this new company last year, they had a much larger client list than my previous company, so obviously that wasn't going to fly. Especially because I don't have a paid account on Azure DevOps here. There's no free one, and they have a cap of 1,800 minutes or so. So what I did, I'll first give a high level of my Azure pipeline, and then I'll talk about a couple of the specifics for Android and iOS that I had to do to white label them and deploy them to the stores.
Quick question. Do they use the App Center builds, or is it Azure DevOps is its own thing for builds?
So App Center is newer than Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps used to be Visual Studio Team Services. App Center, I looked at App Center, using App Center as well, but they don't have a pipeline structure. You can do like pre-build scripts, for example, if you wanted to, and I think post-build scripts or whatnot. But they don't have like a proper release pipeline for like different environments and all that stuff. So I don't use that. But this, I believe actually App Center uses Azure DevOps.
Same versions.
Yeah, exactly. So App Center is just a more simplified version of it. And that would all just be off of source code as well. So, like I said, I'm the only mobile developer at my company, so I don't have too many different branches. I have a dev branch and I have a master branch, and then I'll have a hotfix branch if something comes up in production. But I don't have like 100 different feature branches, different developers working on stuff like that. So these are my build definitions. There's only 4, 2 for Android, 2 for iOS. The ones here are off my development branch, and that's just for whenever I check in and just make sure that any change that I did didn't break anything, obviously. Right? Then I have my 2 CIs that are off my master branch, and these run every time I do a check-in to master, but that only happens basically through pull requests. I'll do a pull request for my dev branch and my master to kick it off.
And you approve it yourself. And
I do.
it yourself.
So the idea.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, it's like I did a good job. No.
Have you seen the meme of the dog walking itself with a leash?
But yeah, I do it through pull requests because the intention was I was eventually going to hire more mobile developers, and I'm a pretty big stickler for that. Like, I hate seeing people just randomly like commit everything with no review.
Yeah,
so the intent was I was going to lead a mobile team, and I was going to be very strict on stuff. But anyway, so the builds run, and these compile the application. Then I'll go down here, and these are my release pipelines, iOS and Android, so one of each. but you can see that they have like a lot of steps.
Wow.
So red marks here, I'll explain those in a bit, but Android's the same thing, a lot less red marks. And yeah, these are obviously just that environment was successful or wasn't successful, right? So looking at the iOS one first, this is the actual overview of my pipeline. So it has all the different environments here. QA, Bosk is the name of my company, so it's our QA, UAT, demo, prod, and then these are all of our clients. So the way this works, I also have the dev one up here, but it's not part of the actual pipeline because I'm the only one who uses it, so it's kind of like ad hoc. I don't want to waste the 2 minutes it takes to do that build, right? So I'll do it. But if you can see, all these tasks have all these stages have very few tasks to them. QA has 2 tasks to them. Everything else has 1, except for the production ones, or the client and the Bosk prod, or the App Store ones. So they have a few more tasks. But the way I have this set up, I also use Azure DevOps for my work items, my stories, my bugs, and all that, which is why QA actually has 2 tasks. So this here, well, these are task groups. That's why it only has 1 task, because I group everything into 1 package.
Okay.
So I can make it more portable. I can use it elsewhere if I need to. Because if I didn't, like this just says internal iOS distribution, but if we look at it, it has the actual tasks associated with my internal distribution.
I didn't know you could do that.
This is super cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, so, and you see here, most things here are...
How'd you figure out what to put in those boxes?
So actually, the way it started is like when I was first doing this, everything was just here, right? But you can select multiple things and you can create a task group from it.
Yeah.
So then it'll, I'm not going to do it here and mess up my pipeline, but it'll take whatever you highlighted and create a group for it. And there's a menu over here for task groups, and you can find all your task groups there if you want to manage them.
Dude, this is super cool.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to look into it, and I just gave up.
Yeah. So in my internal iOS distribution, there's 5 steps. These 2 are like installing your Apple certificate and provision profile on the machine. So for iOS, I have a Mac Mini at our office. I could just have those always just installed there, but this allows it so that if there's power outage, I can flip it to the cloud and it'll still work, right? So there's no dependency on any cloud or any on-premise, right?
Yeah.
I'll show you this. This exists for all the clients, but it says download Bosk configurations. In here, there's only one step. And you might think to yourselves, like, why do you have a task group that's only 1 step? The reason is this is the download Bosk config, and it's used for both iOS and Android. I could just simply have this 1 step, which is just download a secure file, and this secure file is on Azure DevOps as well. But if I need to make a change to this zip file, then Azure forgets about this. So it links to the secure file based off like the internal ID, right? Not like the file name or anything. So and you can't update a secure file, probably by design. Like it's a secure file, you probably don't want to be able to just manipulate it without people knowing. So you can only delete it and then replace it. So if I delete our config file and replace it, this workflow will look essentially like this. Like it'll just be like, I can't find it, right? So I have to go in here, once I re-uploaded the Bosk config file, find it in my list and save it. So the reason why this is a task group is because it's used on both iOS and Android. I don't have to update it in both iOS and the Android pipelines. I just updated this 1 task group and then it applies to both. So I have a few things like that.
So explain the whole zip file again. So every time you have to build, you have to download this. What's the...
Yeah, so what it does is, the way I have my, I guess my...
Like, what's the purpose? Like, I understand what it does, but...
So this is my config file.
Yeah.
It has basically like an app URI like their API, API endpoint, right? It has their App Center ID. This is for like crash analytics, right? Company name, obviously, and then primary, foreground, background colors, accent, and the browser policy, right? So these are the tokens that DevOps will replace. So when it replaces the values in this config file, once my app runs in like the app delegate, it parses it somewhere. Yeah, right here. So it parses it and then just essentially applies it to my configuration C# file, right? So it basically replaces these files, or these values. And these values are my daily like dev values, right? As you can see,
Dang,
dev values.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So then everything basically gets read from here, except for some things for Android.
No wonder they didn't hire another guy. They were like, they're like, yeah, he's got everything.
I got hired to do like, this is like version 3 of their app, which I got hired to build from like ground up. They had version 2 before that. And like I said, there's a couple different ways you can do all this. And the way that they did it before is like, it was still based off of one source code, but they had not even different branches for each client, but they didn't even have the mobile app and source control. It was just all on the guy's laptop. And whenever he's making a change to like this file to fix a bug, he had to copy and paste it into all the different client sources. I'm just like, you need me so badly when I interviewed there. So
That's cool.
So yeah, and then for all the DevOps stuff, there was a CEO's executive assistant who was appointed to all the app stores manually. And it was taking like hours and stuff. So definitely sped things up.
Yeah.
But the configuration file, the zip file that I showed you there, here's so this is the BOSC zip. It's broken down into a couple different sections. There's one config zip file for both Android and iOS, but it's broken up, and then it has a shared JSON file. This has like the API URL, the primary colors, company, the stuff that's applicable to both, right? Android and iOS are broken down based off of what they need. Basically the same structure, like there's a copy folder, which is essentially, once I get into it, it'll say the things that are in this copy folder is bringing into the APK file or the IPA file. And then these are specific configurations for iOS and Android, which would be things like the App Center ID for crash analytics and stuff, so that's separate.
Yeah.
Then there's this App Store folder here and the Play Store folder. And the deployment, what Azure DevOps uses, I'm using the Microsoft task for deploying to the App Store and Google Play, but it uses FastLane under the hood.
Yeah.
And FastLane is just this tool used to automate your distributions, right?
Yeah.
So nothing that I'm doing here is really specific to Azure DevOps. It could be done manually, like a manual script that does all this if you have FastLane installed and all this stuff. So this, like I said, is configuration broken down all that stuff. This metadata folder is a FastLane thing, right? So you can have all your App Store and Play Store metadata local somewhere. You can edit it, and then once FastLane deploys to the store, it'll update your description, it'll update your release notes and all that stuff for you. Or your review details for Apple. When you have to tell them like username and password, you can update that through FastLane. The way I generate all of this is I built a very quick and dirty web page, and as you were saying before, like we're mobile developers, and this is I'm actually quite proud of my accomplishment. Yeah, exactly. Hey, brought me back to my old Razor days, like MVC.net, Razor days and stuff like that. So I'm like,
MVC.
yeah, so it's very nice, right?
Yeah.
But it's basic stuff, so it's just. So I'll fill all this out with their primary colors, privacy policy, and then there's a place for the Firebase configurations for push notifications, App Store metadata, all that stuff, key store alias for Android. I don't actually use this anymore in the config. It's now in Azure DevOps as a secure token. I just haven't updated this, so this doesn't get used. It can be whatever. Android Firebase, iOS Firebase, stuff like that, and then Android assets and iOS assets. And those would be things that end up in that copy folder. So if I did all this, it creates the zip file. There's obviously nothing in that one, but that's how we got to this. This is the contents of that zip file. So these are all the client ones, but all the actual zip files are here, and then they're in source control, obviously, as well. So so that explains that part. So going back,
Scott,
Yeah.
just a question. Besides the colors and things like that, can you also change assets, like icons and pictures and things like that?
Yep. So I'll get into that. iOS has a very tricky thing for that, but I'll get into that in a minute here. But just looking at my QA stage, there's also this QA work item updater. Like I said, all my bugs and all that are in the Azure boards over here, work items and all that.
Yeah.
And I have this set up. There's this third-party task in the DevOps marketplace which will update the work item statuses and the assignee and stuff like that. So when I work on a bug, as you see in the work item types there, if there's a bug logged, then I'll mark it as resolved normally once I complete the work. Visual Studio will do that as well. When you do a check-in, you just assign it to a work item ID, and you can mark it as resolved through there. So what this updater does is it looks for any.
Wait, how does Visual Studio do it?
So Visual Studio, I'm not running
This
parallels
actually
right now.
it tags it with the work item number. and-
Like on the Mac?
No, not on
Oh, okay.
the Windows side.
Okay.
Well, in Mac too. So if you
Does
use the work item number and your commit.
Oh, yeah,
So
so-
if you go like hash, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
When you commit that, it attaches it in the metadata in Azure DevOps that this commit is associated with this work item.
Yeah,
it
so
ties them together.
there's two ways to do it. You can do it in the commit message, as you
Yeah.
say, but also Visual Studio for Windows allows you to, it has a field, enter a work item number if you don't want to put it into the commit message. And I normally work in parallel, so that's how I
Yeah.
do it. But basically I mark it as resolved. So then this task will, when I do the pull request into the master branch, all my commits are there and all my related work items are associated to that that master CI build, right? And what this task does is it grabs all those work items and it updates the status. So assuming they're a bug 2 or defect, like those are my company's IDs, right? And then if they're either marked as resolved or I've marked them as a duplicate, then it'll update them to ready for test here. You see the work item state. And then it assigns it back to the person who assigned it to me. So that would be like a QA, right? The QA has assigned it to me, it assigns it right back to them. I don't have to manually go and update all my work items ready for test and assign them to whoever.
Yeah.
I'm extremely lazy, so
Dude,
I
this
can't
is
do it.
amazing.
So that was config in the work item. So this group here, if we have a look here, this here, as Daniel, what you were asking about assets and images and stuff. One of the things for our clients that we need to update is obviously the home screen app icon that shows up on your iPhone. So the way that I do that is in this configuration that you saw. I don't expect like all the different icons and all the different resolutions and all that stuff. I expect just one high resolution, like 1024 or something.
Yeah.
And then there's this thing on GitHub here, which will generate your iOS icons for you, right? It's just a basic shell script, right? And yeah, so it generates all these different icons for you.
Wow.
So I included that in I took that script and put it onto my secure storage on DevOps. And so that's what this task is. It's downloading that script file. Right? So it goes through, there's all these other things, but this generate icons here is what actually calls that script. See here, and it just takes this argument. So it just, in that copy folder that you saw, there's one file called app icon, and it's a big 1024 file, and it generates all those individuals, and then it drops it in here. Assets, folder / app icon assets. So anyone who does iOS development, you see that there's this assets folder here.
Yeah.
So it's all these things, right? And then there's and then there's like app icon, and then these are my company's logo, right? It only has the ones that are necessary and applicable, obviously. But one thing about that though, one gotcha that I ran into with that is the later versions of Xcode, later as in I was like 4 years, so not that late, it compiles all the assets into a car file. So it's like .car is the endpoint. And you can't really, as far as I know, you can't really just unzip it like you could like an IPA and like manipulate and add things into it. So I couldn't get into my IPA file and update these assets and stuff like that. So what I did to get around that is, if we go back to my builds, so these builds also have their own tasks, their own steps associated with them. But one thing that I did is when I have my source code, this is before it's compiled the IPA file. I'm actually taking my assets folder and I'm copying it to the staging directory. And what that is once this build completes and it drops your IPA file somewhere, it's a specific folder in Azure DevOps, right? So that the release pipelines can pick up the IPA file, right? So alongside the IPA file is the raw assets folder, so that I can then replace those app icons and splash screen and all that stuff, right? So then what I have to do is, like I said, it's a file called the car file, and actually I have a local agent on my computer. I don't do my builds on my computer, it's just when I'm testing it, right? If I drill down to my iOS one, the drop folder here, so this is the assets, right? This is the asset folder, these are the icons, right? So I have this available in my release pipelines, just like I have available the IPA file that needs to be decompiled. So I update all the assets, like the logos and stuff, and then I use an Xcode command line tool. And since these run on Macs, obviously because it's an iOS build, it has access to the Xcode command line. And there's a specific tool, AC tool here, or a specific function, I guess you can say, that will compile this assets folder into that car file, right? So I just basically have the raw folder of the assets. I run this step in my pipeline, and it compiles it down to that car file, which I couldn't, as far as I know, unwrap in the first place, right? So then I just take that and replace it into the IPA file, and then the company's icons are all updated and stuff like that.
So do you have like detailed documentation for all
No.
this?
Yeah, there's actually.
Because like, what if you like? What if like he leaves the company? You know, they're just screwed.
So
He's
so
just
actually,
like
they're not completely screwed.
they have no clue what's going on. They're like, we don't know what this does, or
Well,
that, or that, or that.
Yeah, very true, actually. But actually, one thing that I have here, they might not understand everything that I'm doing, but one thing that I have is when we add like a new client, for example, if they want to add that client, like I create these templates. So I made it very easy. So I create this template. Let's say I name the company is TO, well, whatever, right? Like that's the name of our client. It already has those 5 tasks. So all you have to do is the certificate and provision profile. These are left blank intentionally because you have to upload their provision profiles to here. But it's very straightforward. You plug them in here, you upload their config file, and I have that website that will generate it, and so just select it here. And then everything else is basically good, except for one thing. One other thing I was about to get to is...
they can't fire you, man.
so one other thing for iOS is there's this list of variables, like Azure, just like task groups that I have everything grouped together. You can group variables together. So this is good for things like passwords and stuff like that, right? So they just have to fill in this stuff. This stuff up here is just for App Center integration, right?
Yeah.
Because all the apps that I upload to the App Store, I also upload the IPA to App Center, because you can't re-download an IPA file from App Store. And if for whatever reason I need to get that, maybe I want to double check the API URL or something and all that, I want to be able to just manually tear it down, unwrap it, and have a look, right? So everything goes to App Center as kind of like a backup or a repository, I guess you can say. Very cool. But these fields here, like App Store email, this is the email address that FastLane uses to log into your App Store account to upload. So they just really have to fill out all this information. And I got the templates. Everything's very templated up. But a little bit of a knowledge transfer wouldn't hurt.
There are people asking for you to do a blog post or write
Yeah.
something about
Dude,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, to share the knowledge in it.
I'm glad it's recorded.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I was
I'm
gonna say,
definitely
so
gonna
this,
watch
this is your documentation.
Because I'm definitely gonna watch
My
it.
comment was, I thought I was the king of mobile DevOps, and I bow down.
Dude, this is next level.
Yeah.
So the rest of this iOS distribution group is fairly straightforward. This is the App Store assets I was talking about, like FastLane and all that. This copy is just plist files, and the only plist that's copying is the Firebase configuration plist file for the client, which is part of that zip file that's downloaded.
Mm-hmm.
This just zips up the IPA file again. It's pretty straightforward. And then this re-signs the IPA file with the details of
Yeah.
the provision profile stuff. So actually, one cool thing is
One cool. Wow. Just
like all these task groups. You see, there's all these variables. These kind of bubble up, I suppose you can say. So if you look up here, this is where all your variables are defined. So if in here you put in a variable, like if I just type this in, or if I type something in here, which don't embarrass me now.
You mean autocomplete?
No. So what it does is it created this variable up here, right? So
Yeah.
what I did is in here, I created a variable. I just named it Apple, and then it shows up here.
Yeah.
Right? So you can put a default value. So this variable Apple is specific to this deployment group. You can set a default value if you want, and these default values, like company name, are, I guess, bubbled down, you can say, from the parent pipeline, or the parent stage, right? So I'm gonna take that out. But yeah, so this goes all the way to re-signing the app. For internal, it doesn't put it to the App Store, obviously. It just deploys it to Visual Studio App Center. It is very straightforward and basic, I suppose. But for a client, this is TL Mobile.
How many web developers do you guys have?
One.
Oh, okay.
So for App Store releases, this takes a second. Like I said, there's 5 tasks, but all our clients and the boss prod one goes to our App Store. They're all the same steps, same everything. So it's client-specific certificate and provisioning profile, client-specific configuration file, and then this deployment group that I just told you about. This is used for both internal and, I guess, external, you can call them. And then there's this group for publishing to the App Store. This part I want to rework slightly, just because we have some clients who are in test flight only, and then there are some clients who are in production, as you can say, like available on the App Store.
Mm-hmm.
But I only have one published App Store group right now, and I kind of just switch between if I need to, right? But basically, it has just a few steps for updating username, password, and test flight description stuff. This is more for Apple, like when they need to test their app, this login credentials that they need to use, right? And then this file, the deliver file, if anyone's used FastLane before, this is part of FastLane. And one thing with using FastLane for iOS, does anyone here handle the deployments for their apps?
Yeah.
Anyone else responsible for going to App Store and
Yeah.
submitting, doing all that stuff? So one of the questions that's asked a lot is like, does your app use specific encryption? Does it use this other thing, right? Add ID and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the deliver file for FastLane allows you to set the values for it. Because if you don't have it, and it asks, I guess you can say, if it asks FastLane for this stuff, it'll just hang. It will just wait, right?
Yeah.
So this deliver file just gets downloaded to, this was the job folder, so it gets downloaded here. And this directory here is what FastLane reads from. That's where you see the metadata and the screenshots. So FastLane will read this deliver file and then just auto submit with those values that you provide for those things, right? The thing, and then, again, deploying to App Center. So this is one of my completed releases from, I think, what did you say, March 15th or so? Yeah, 15th, whatever.
So your app currently uses like a core is like how do you use the same pipeline for all those apps?
So they use the same code base.
Okay.
The only difference is the API endpoint that it calls to get
Yeah.
the data,
Okay.
the branding information, like
Yeah.
the colors and
Okay.
the logos
Okay.
and stuff
Cool.
like that.
Cool.
So the way I have my pipeline set up, I like to be very hands-off, like as you can say, when it comes to releases. So I don't want people coming to me and like QA's looking for a new build. It's like it's not my problem. Like,
Yeah.
right? But so the way it works is when I do a pull request from dev into the master builds, and it automatically creates a release pipeline.
Yeah.
Once it's done that, it automatically tries to send it to QA, but I have approvals set up on QA. So I don't want to, like, the apps for QA get sent to App Center and then they download them from there. I don't want to continuously deploy to App Center if like they happen to not be finished with their current version, because if they have to uninstall, I don't want them to get confused with all that stuff. So I have teams or groups of teams set up in Azure, and this is just our QA. So our QAs are part of this team. One of them has to approve the deployment to QA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once QA signs off on it, once they're good, then Azure DevOps will ask them to approve it. Once they do that, that kicks off the other environments. So I don't have pre or post approvals for UAT or demo. Those are kind of just like a pass-through things. It's like it updates when it updates, or whatever, right? But our Boss production one has an approval, so it doesn't go to the App Store until, well, I'm set as the approver now, so until I say it's good for the App Store. But that would normally be like a PM or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I have a post-deployment approval on the Boss prod one specifically. Just like I said, these all share basically all the same logic. So if the Boss prod one failed for a reason, it's likely applies to everyone. I mean, it might be Apple server issue, it might be my issue or something like that, right? But basically, once this gets deployed to the App Store, then I'll go in and approve it once someone tells me that the clients are ready to get their apps. And you could have this set up where, like, I have this set up where once this is approved, it'll kick off the deployment for all of our clients, because nobody has a problem with that, right? We haven't had like a client yet who's very granular about stuff like that, like deploy it only on this day or whatever like that, right? So it basically just shoots off all of our clients to the App Store sequentially. These take a little while though.
So what are your release cycles like? Every month, every week?
They're actually pretty ad hoc. It's basically just like when there's like our clients are kind of like, they're getting they're getting the initial version of V3. That's a big thing where it's like structured in time. But the ones who have already taken the latest version, it's just whenever we want to give them an update, we give them an update kind of thing.
So basically every time you have a PR that goes through, like our task, like gets approved from QA and prod.
Yeah, so I group my work. I group my work over a bit of time. So if I do like one fix, one small thing, I don't do a pull request in the master and kick things off. Right? It's something minor like that, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But once there's something of substance, or if there's a critical bug that needs to be fixed or something, then
Yeah.
sure, right?
Cool.
So these deployments to App Store take a little bit of time. Not that one. So, like you see in temp 4, that's because you have the option of editing a release, but you can edit the definition of a release, or you can edit just this specific release 3.9, right? And that's why you see a temp 4, because I changed a couple things, because the last few failed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I go to a different client, so this one took 10 minutes and change to deploy. All my stuff is very quick. Like these are all my tasks, just unwrapped, I guess. So those 5 tasks, task groups equates to all this.
Yeah.
But publishing the App Store took 10 minutes itself. Because if you upload an IPA to Apple, to the App Store, it has to process the IPA file, right? Which takes, in this case, it took 9 minutes, but sometimes it takes like 20 minutes, right? But FastLane, like if you tell FastLane that you want to submit it for review, for release, FastLane has to wait until that processing is done. That's why you have the 9 minutes there. Android, by comparison, takes like 3 minutes or something like that, so it's just whatever. But yeah, so this deploys, so all the clients, they deploy sequentially one after another. These ones failed, and they're kind of expected to fail. The reason why is some of these apps, the ones that are not released, like the ones that are in production, they're set up in here to automatically submit for release or for approval and then automatically release once they're approved, right? Everyone else is mainly sent for approval, but manual release, right? Because maybe it's next week that the client wants their app. I want Apple to approve it now, right? So I can just click the button, right? But if in App Store, like in this client, for example, if in the App Store, Apple has approved it, and it's just waiting for developer release, FastLane won't overwrite that build, right? So it won't, to submit a new app to Apple for review, you have to remove that previously approved one. So that's why these ones failed. But they still uploaded the IPA to App Store, so it's still there. So I just had to go in manually just do it because I just forgot that I had that one there. So there's no reason to redeploy these because I just manually fixed it on app side.
But you sign in with each different account.
So,
or you just choose the different account. Yeah.
yes, so this is not my ideal way of doing it or whatever, but I have one master email that is a release manager for each client's app store.
Yeah.
So it's just mobile app company, whatever, and I have my own password set up for that.
Yeah.
It's not the most secure way of doing things, right?
Yeah.
Normally, Azure DevOps, you should have these variables unique for each client, unique passwords for each client, stuff like that, but that hasn't been an issue, and like I said, I'm extremely lazy, so, so I haven't done it yet. I'm just going to quickly go to Android, but Android follows the exact same structure. All the different environments, everything is the exact same except for the tasks that it completes. The only thing I'm going to say about Android, everything's pretty much the same. Deploy to Google Play, sign the APK, download, and then configuration. I'm just going to very quickly go with the configuration side here. So what I use on the Android side is an APK file and an IPA file, which are basically just glorified zip files, right? But you can't exactly just unzip an APK file and do the manipulation you want, just like how you can with an IPA file for the most part, because Android compiles down all your stuff into like the resource files and stuff like that. So the way Android works is like with primary colors. That's when you start or when your color.xml values and stuff like that. And then Firebase is a real pain for Android if I want to manipulate the values in the IPA, because it compiles with the BOSC Firebase stuff, and it throws it all into like the strings.xml file. Right? So I have to actually find all the keys. That's what this group here is, but it basically just finds all the keys that I need to replace and replaces with the client-specific Firebase values, right? So it's really annoying. It was really annoying to write all this out and test it all out and stuff like that. But I'm using the this thing called Apktool. If anyone's used it before, it's basically it unwraps an APK file for you and makes it so you can update the values and stuff like that. So if I go back to my local here.
So wait, you can take an APK from the internet and just unwrap it?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
If you know where to look and where to find
People
the values.
do that. They'll download like the Facebook APK. They'll do it, run through Apktool, and like change colors if they wanted to, and it works. Right? You have to re-sign it, but as long as they can re-sign it or
You don't need to re-sign it, do you?
well, I guess if you're maybe sideloading in like developer options on it, you might not have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise.
So you
if
can
use
basically
an APK
figure
tool,
out,
I have
like,
your phone set up as
You
developer.
can basically figure out like hashing algorithms and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you can see some of the source depending on.
Yeah, it does compile and wraps everything into a kind of a zip file.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can look at the code itself.
You can.
But can you?
Yep. So for Xamarin, as you can see here, there are DLL files, right? You can decompile DLL files, and then when it comes to like Java and Kotlin, it's basically the same
JetBrains.
thing, right?
I know that JetBrains has a good tool to decompile DLLs.
Yeah.
You can actually look at the font. And,
Yeah. So it's all
Wow.
it's all really available. But this is what stuff like ProGuard is for and stuff like that. what's the term, obfuscate your code and stuff like that, just to make it harder to read.
Yeah.
Names all your
Yeah,
methods
yeah.
with like R1 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't do that. So, but basically for Android, there's a lot of files here, but this is the result of my pipeline being run, right?
Mhm.
And since it's just my local computer, I never like cleaned this up. But every time the pipeline runs, it deletes all what might be there already, so it starts fresh, obviously.
Mhm.
But
What's that MSIM? The .apk.
this is all like I think this is like the debug symbols and all that.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
But this is the original APK file. It gets unzipped, not unzipped, it gets decompiled with APKtool, right?
Change
And-
the .apk to .zip. I think you'll be able to.
Yeah, you can,
Yes.
but it doesn't give you access to everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll do a quick comparison.
You can do what?
Like you change the .apk to
Yeah.
a .zip, and you can see most of what's in there, right?
Yeah, but it's not good for replacing values.
Mm-hmm. We also built a specific pipeline for iOS and Android. And at first I tried making the APK a zip file and trying to modify the values as well.
Yep.
And then eventually I ran into this tool that you showed us. And yeah, I can relate to how painful it is to change the values.
But this is the end result of APKtool unwrapping all your stuff, right?
Mhm.
So your manifest file is here, so you can update package ID and stuff like that, I believe. There's one thing that's in this YAML file that normally is in the Android manifest. It's one of the version values, I think version code 77. If I want to edit this, I have to edit it in this YAML file, not in the manifest file.
Mhm.
Because APKtool strips that value code of the manifest for one reason or another. But this resource file, this has, like, you see a lot of this looks familiar, jobbles, right?
Mhm.
So this is where one of these jobble folders, I think it's V4, yeah. This would drop in like the logos and stuff like that. So same with iOS where I'm replacing it into the assets folder, I just drop it into the jobble folders for Android. And then this values folder has my colors.xml, or sorry, yeah, strings and colors.xml. And if I want to change the primary colors, I just do a regex on these XML files. Replace it. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the big thing for Android, just taking that APK tool, unwrapping it, replacing these values, and then everything else from there is pretty straightforward. Just use the APK tool to also repackage it back into the APK. You re-sign it, you send it off to that client-specific Google Play store, deployed to Google Play.
Mhm.
One thing that kind of bothers me about Azure DevOps is their secure storage has a limit of 10 megabytes per file. So for APKtool, I'm not using like the latest. I haven't had any issues or whatever, right? But the latest is like 15 megabytes. I could upload that if I wanted to.
So what made you choose, I know you're using secure storage on some things and then you're using like your actual source code repository for
Yeah.
others. What makes you make the decision where you're going to store which?
I had to do like a zip file. Well, I didn't have to, I guess, but it's the difference between being able to very quickly generate that zip file with like non-security related values and stuff like that, right? So that glorious website that I made, filling this out and just downloading a zip file and uploading it is easier than creating a really big variable group on a client basis, right? But like, things like this API URL and stuff like that, that could be just put into a variable group for a specific stage.
What I kind of need, Scott, is like, what about taking that zip file and making it part of your source?
Oh, yeah. So I'm not big on that. I'm not big on having client-specific stuff in source code. I don't know what it is. I don't like it. I want to be very generic, right?
Yeah, I see what you
I don't want to bloat it up with things. I don't want the possibility of merge conflicts arising because someone edited a file that's not related to the source code. So, you know, stuff like that, right?
So do you fill this out yourself, or do you get the client to fill this out too?
No, so right now I do it.
Oh.
The intent.
When are you going to make them do it?
Well, that was part of the intent of doing this was so that even if it's only someone internal, they could fill this out.
Yeah.
Give me the zip file and I'm on my way, right?
Yeah.
I don't expect like executive assistants to like go in and manage all this stuff,
Yeah.
the DevOps stuff, but generate that zip file, give it to me, and give me passwords and stuff like that to fill this out, and then
Yeah.
good, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically it, I suppose.
Yeah.
So wait, how long did it take you to do all of this?
I had something like this at my last company, so I already had familiarity.
Did
with
you
it.
set it up over there, or it was
Yeah, I
already
set
set
it up
up?
over there. I was a lot more pressed for time at my last company, so it was very. I'm pretty sure at my last company I did everything as just a build definition, right? Not a pipeline or anything like
yeah.
that. And I think I had like client specific builds here, and then it would replace the assets in the source control, or not source control, in the source before it did the compiling, right? So I didn't have to do all this unwrapping and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the problem with that, as I showed, the Android build takes like 6 minutes, right? So
Yeah.
it's not scalable, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, so the Android build takes 6 minutes, and then what's the release for? This is Android, right? For this client, it took 2 minutes to actually recompile the APK, or like unwrap, recompile, and send it to their Google Play Store.
Mhm.
Whereas if I would have just did off the source, this client would have taken 6 minutes, and all clients would have taken 6 minutes, right? So it's significantly saves a lot of time by doing it this way.
Yeah. Awesome.
Dang.
Thank you, Scott, for sharing all this.
Did you face a situation when you had to publish an app to the store where you don't have a login, like a user and a password, but you have to send a code, SMS or something?
Like
how do you
two-factor?
put this- Yeah, two-factor authentication. How do you put this into your script for
So,
the App Store?
yeah, so I don't do that. And when I joined the company, all of their accounts that they had set up for Apple were two-factor authentication, like even our internal ones. That's just how they set it up. It makes sense, right? I don't do that. So for my Apple login, it has a very strong password, but it's not two-factor, right? But the way you would handle that is FastLane has something set up for two-factor authentication. It has to do like it's a little more involved, and I tried it initially, and I was like, it's too much work. It doesn't work. But FastLane has something for that where it generates a session, and then that session will be used for the duration of deployment or whatnot. And that I can't remember if I don't think it uses two-factor authentication in the sense where it will generate a code and then you have to put it into, like I won't be able to put it into like a command here or anything like that. I'm sure FastLane has that if I did everything from command line. But it has a way to, I believe, like with a generate token from Apple or something like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you look at FastLane, they have a section on their website covering two-factor authentication and how to deal with it, which is what DevOps uses under the hood anyway.
Mhm.
Thank you.